The scene inside the quiet, semi-detached house in Overstone Road, Luton, was not merely a crime scene. It was a testament to a primal, unchecked hatred that had been festering in the shadow for years. When the lead investigators stepped into the hallway on that humid May night, the air was thick with a metallic tang of blood and the heavy, suffocating silence of a house that had just witnessed the unthinkable. Saima Khan lay near the front door, her body a map of 68 distinct sites of violence. The sheer ferocity of the attack had left the veteran officers stunned. This wasn't the work of a panicked burglar looking for an exit. This was an overkill, a forensic term used when the level of violence far exceeds what is necessary to take a life. It is a signature of deep-seated, personal rage. Saima's throat had been cut with such savage force that she was nearly decapitated, a final, gruesome attempt by her killer to silence her forever. But while Saima lay in the hallway, the woman who had called the police, her sister Sabah, stood nearby, enveloped in performance of trembling grief. To the initial responding officers, Sabah was a traumatized survivor of a home invasion. She spun a frantic tale of being in the shower, hearing a commotion, and stumbling upon her sister's lifeless body after a group of intruders had fled. She gestured to a smashed window, the jagged shards of glass glinting on floors proof of a forced entry. Yet, as the night wore on, the burglar narrative began to fracture under the weight of forensic reality. Detectives noticed that the glass from the broken window was almost entirely on the outside of the house, suggesting it had been smashed from the inside to stage a scene. Furthermore, despite the supposed chaos of a robbery, nothing of value had been taken. The jewelry boxes were untouched. The electronics remained in place. The only thing stolen from that house was Saima's life. Then there was Sabah herself. Clad in fresh clothes, she appeared relatively composed for someone who had just discovered their sister in a pool of blood. When a sharp-eyed officer noticed a small cut on her hand and blood under her fingernails, Sabah didn't flinch. She claimed she had cut herself while trying to help her sister, or perhaps on the shattered glass. It was a calculated answer, but her eyes lacked the hollowed-out shock typical of such a tragedy. She wasn't just calm, she was chillingly present. The investigation moved from the hallway into the digital and private world of Sabah Khan, and that is where the true horror began to unfurl. Forensic technicians seized Sabah's phone and laptop, peeling back the layers of a double life that seemed pulled from a dark psychological thriller. For 4 years, while Saima was building a life with her husband Hafiz and their 4 children, Sabah had been methodically attempting to dismantle it. The affair with Hafiz wasn't just a lapse in judgment, it was a campaign of possession. The records revealed a woman who had become obsessed with the idea of replacing her sister. Sabah didn't just want Hafiz, she wanted Saima's status, her home, and her children. The desperation had driven her to extremes that bordered on the medieval. Investigators were floored to find evidence that Sabah had paid £5,000, a massive sum for a woman of her means, to a fixer and witch doctor in Pakistan. Her request was simple and terrifying. She wanted a death curse placed on Saima. She wanted her sister to simply wither away so she could step into the void. When the black magic failed to produce a corpse, Sabah's focus shifted to the tangible. Her search history in the weeks leading up to the murder was a haunting roadmap of intent. She had moved past the supernatural and into the cold, hard world of homicide. She searched for poisonous snakes, perhaps hoping for an accidental encounter. She looked up how to hire a killer in the UK. Finally, she settled on a more hands-on approach, searching for 16 steps to kill someone and not get caught in how to stage a burglary. The premeditation was solidified by a mundane trip to a local Tesco. CCTV footage from the day before the murder showed Sabah browsing the kitchenware aisle. She didn't buy groceries. She bought a large, heavy-duty kitchen knife. She didn't take it home to cook. She hid it, waiting for the perfect moment when the house would be empty of protectors. That moment came on May 23rd, with their parents and Hafiz away at a funeral. Sabah knew she had a window of opportunity. She tucked Saima's 4 children, the youngest only an infant, into their beds upstairs. Then, she sent a bait. A simple text to Saima, claiming the children were crying and needed their mother. It was a cool use of Saima's maternal instincts to lure her to her death. As Saima walked through the front door, exhausted from work and worried about her kids, Sabah was waiting in the darkness of the hallway. For 8 minutes, the twin-like bond between the sisters was severed by 68 plunges of a Tesco knife. The most haunting detail of the entire night came from the children. Woken by the sounds of the struggle, the thuds, the gasps, the frantic scraping of feet, One of the children called out from the top of the stairs, "Are you killing a mouse, Aunty?" "Yes," Sabah had reportedly replied, her voice steady even as she stood over the mangled body of their mother. "Go back to sleep." The performance Sabah gave for the police began to crumble completely when detectives searched her bedroom. Tucked away under a pile of cardboard boxes was a bin bag. Inside, they found the blood-soaked clothes Sabah had worn during the attack and the Tesco knife, still coated in Saima's DNA. The burglar was in the house all along. The betrayal sent shockwaves through the Luton community. These were two sisters seen shopping together, laughing together, and raising children together. The revelation of the 4-year affair and the cold-blooded planning of the execution painted Sabah as a predator of the highest order. She hadn't just killed her sister. She had attempted to curate a new reality where she was a heroine, and Saima was merely an obstacle to be removed. In the end, the jury saw through the mental health defense and the claims of being manipulated by Hafiz. They saw the £5,000 receipts for curses, the Google searches for snakes, and the calculated lure of a mother's love for her children. Sabah Khan was sentenced to life with a minimum of 22 years, leaving behind a family home that remains a monument to a sister's ultimate betrayal. Saima was gone, Sabah was caged, and the children were left to grow up in the shadow of a night where their favorite aunt turned their home into a house of horrors. The trial of Sabah Khan was nothing short of a media circus, a tabloid frenzy that gripped the nation and pulled back the curtain on a suburban home in Luton that had become a pressure cooker of lust, resentment, and black magic. Inside the courtroom, the air was thick with the scent of a family's total disintegration. The defense team had a mountainous task ahead of them. They attempted to paint Sabah not as a cold-blooded executioner, but as a victim of her own mind. They argued she suffered from significant mental health struggles, portraying her as a fragile woman who had been manipulated and groomed by Hafiz Remen over the course of their 4-year clandestine affair. However, the jury wasn't buying a narrative of helplessness. The prosecution systematically dismantled the image of the confused sister by presenting a digital trail of cold, hard calculation. They showcased her Google search history, a macabre shopping list of death that included queries for poisonous snakes, how to hire a killer, and a chilling 16 steps to kill someone and not get caught. This wasn't a woman in a trance. This was a woman who was studying for a degree in murder. Then came the most surreal piece of evidence, a receipt. Sabah had actually paid £5,000 to a witch doctor in Pakistan to place a death curse on Saima. When the supernatural failed to deliver, Sabah decided to handle the execution herself. The jury saw the malice, the premeditation, and the sheer ferocity of the 68 stab wounds. Sabah was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum of 22 years before she could even taste the possibility of parole. But as the heavy iron doors slammed shut on Sabah, the public's attention shifted to the man left standing in the wreckage, Hafiz Remen. In the eyes of the law, he was a witness, a grieving widower, and a victim of his sister-in-law's obsession. In court, Hafiz played his part to perfection. He spoke of his beloved Saima and the hollow life he now led. He attempted to explain away the 4-year affair by claiming he was forced into it, alleging that Sabah had been the aggressor who wouldn't let him go. It was a defense that even the judge found hard to swallow, noting the sheer length of the affair and the fact that they had been sneaking off for sex in his taxi in the family home for nearly half a decade. If Hafiz was truly broken by the loss of his wife and the betrayal of his mistress, his healing process was remarkably fast. The mourning period was little more than a brief intermission. Shortly after the trial concluded and the cameras moved on, Hafiz traveled back to his native village of Gulpur in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. He didn't go to reflect or to find solace in prayer. He went to find a replacement. In a small, intimate ceremony that felt like a slap in the face to the memory of Saima, he married a second wife. The audacity didn't stop there. Hafiz brought his new bride back to Luton, the very same town where his first wife had been slaughtered in a hallway, and where his 4 children were still reeling from the trauma of losing their mother at the hands of their aunt. Today, Hafiz lives a new life. He and his second wife have since had 2 children of their own, effectively building a second family over the ruins of the first. Yet, while he has a new wife and a new home, he is a ghost in his own community. He has become a pariah, a man whose presence is tolerated only for the sake of the children. His extended family and the local community in Luton have largely shunned him, unable to reconcile his grieving husband act with the reality of his swift remarriage and his role in the catalyst for the murder. The most haunting image of his current existence is his ritual of dropping off his and Saima's children at their grandparents' house. This is the same semi-detached house in Chalney where Saima's blood once stained the corridor. Hafiz never dares to step foot across that threshold. He parks his car up the street, watching from behind the steering wheel as his children walk into the home where their mother took her last breath. He stays in the car, isolated by a wall of glass and a mountain of unspoken guilt. Meanwhile, Saima and Sabah's parents are trapped in a living tomb. They still reside in that neat, tidy house. They walk the same hallway where the lights were cut for those 8 minutes of horror. They sleep in the rooms where the affair was consummated under their very noses. They are the silent victims of a crime so intimate it defies comprehension. They refuse to speak of the trauma, living in a quiet, dignified purgatory 10 years later. The Khan case serves as a terrifying psychological study of the double life. It forces us to look at the people we love most and ask, who are you when the lights go out? To the world, Sabah and Saima were twins, inseparable souls who shared everything. But beneath that bond was a boiling cauldron of envy and a 4-year betrayal that transformed a sister into a predator. So, we have to ask the difficult question, was Hafiz Rehman just as guilty as Sabah for the psychological breaking of his family? While he didn't hold the knife, his infidelity provided the fuel for the fire. He treated two sisters like items on a menu, moving between them with a taxi driver's cold detachment, seemingly oblivious or indifferent to the explosive tension he was creating. Can a man who facilitates a 4-year affair within a family home truly claim he had no part in the tragedy that followed? The story of the Khan sisters isn't just a story about a murder. It's a story about the total collapse of the domestic sanctuary. It's a reminder that the most dangerous person in your life isn't a stranger in the dark. It's the person sitting across from you at the dinner table, smiling while they plan your replacement. What do you think? Is Hafiz a victim of a crazed woman, or was he the architect of his wife's demise? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into the dark side of the human psyche as disturbing as I did, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. We'll be here, peeling back the layers of the cases that the world tries to forget. Stay safe, and watch your back. Sometimes the shadow walking behind you is your own blood. This is Crime Lens. Every detail matters.